Hello and welcome to Downtown. I'm your host, Robbie Haig. Thank you for being with us today. I will be talking with Dr. Heather Bish-Martin, who is Project Forward Director at Four Seas College. Heather, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to come in and speak about our program and
Wonderful.
really advocate for student attendance. We are a small vocational program at the Four Seas, but we've actually been in existence for 30 years.
Amazing.
Which is remarkable. It really is. What we're doing is providing vocational training to people with disabilities, but the ideas about providing transition services or this type of training really has been more of a hot topic in the last 10 or 15. So the fact that the college has supported a program like this for 30 years is really groundbreaking and just
Terrific.
shows the dedication that the
And
Four
the
Cs,
need. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that the Four Cs has to
Excellent.
this population of students and to their community and what the community's needs are. So I'm very proud to be a part of this now. I moved down here in August to take this position. I was a longtime special ed teacher and administrator, and I was literally sitting on my bed thinking about what I could do. I had been writing curriculum at a college in Western Massachusetts, and I thought, geez, I really miss the students. I really miss, I had studied transition services in my doctoral work, and I didn't really have the application yet. I was overseeing an education program to help teachers become teachers. And so this email came across my lap, and I thought, what are the chances?
Oh, wow.
And I actually said to my husband, what do you think? Should I just go for it? And he said, absolutely, you need to follow your dreams.
Wonderful.
And so here I am in my dream job, and I'm so happy to be here today to talk to you about what we're doing over there.
I'm so pleased that you wanted to talk about it. And I do like the name Project Forward. It says a great deal.
It does, and it's been around for a while, and I know sometimes it can be confusing because there's a Project Search program that serves people with disabilities that's in a hospital setting that provides employment, and that's a newer program in the last few years. And recently there's a program called Forward that is a housing development for people with autism on the Cape. So we are Project Forward, so we're different, but sometimes the names can be confusing. But I think our most important distinction is that we're at the college. And so being able to offer vocational training to students with disabilities in a college setting is really remarkable. There's probably only about 200 or so programs across the country that offer this type of inclusive opportunities. What we do is we give students in their first year a chance to try different vocations. We have a cooking class, a landscaping, office technology, mass communications, very similar to this, where kids are learning at the radio station on our campus. Animal care, which is very popular for the students.
Really?
So we have a number of programs that the kids sort of rotate through in their first year, kind of getting that chance to see what they like and where their interests are. I think sometimes when we go to college, we think we want to be a journalist or a teacher, and then we decide, maybe that's too much writing, or I don't really like those little kids so much, and we change our minds, which is completely normal.
Yes, it's just as important to know what you don't want to do as
exactly.
what you do want to do.
And environments too. Do you want to be inside, or do you prefer working outside? So those are important pieces to our program, where students get the chance to try different fields and see what they like.
So are your students all college-age students?
Well, actually, we're fortunate enough that we can take any age student. So predominantly our students come in at the college age, but we have students in their 30s. We've had students who've had brain injuries and that come in. So our general requirements are that you have an intellectual or developmental disability, that you're able to follow the code of conduct at school and sort of navigate independently around campus. But we don't have, you don't have to have a diploma, you don't have to have SAT scores or anything like that.
Very good.
We interview students and we take recommendations just like a regular college application, but our program is a certification program. So what happens is the students try the different vocations the first year, and they're assessed after each one, and then they meet with their advisors and decide what they want to concentrate on that second year. So it could be hospitality, it could be, like I said, animal care or mass communications, and they'll take the classes, and then they do 50 hours of an internship where they get a job coach that works 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 with them, really teaching those skills to be able to maintain a job after attending the program. And we are so fortunate. We have an 87% employment rate after students attend the program.
So this is all based on making them as independent as they possibly can be.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So it's
That's
amazing.
quite a rate.
It is, and I give credit to our teachers.
Wow.
We have amazing teachers. One of my teachers is 84, and she's been on the Cape for a long time. She's been working in the service industry. She's been a job coach, and she's a teacher, and a mom and a grandma, and she's just amazing. She's one of those teachers that makes things stick in your head.
Wow.
And it's funny because sometimes employers will actually call Betty, our teacher, and say, do you have anybody that can do this job, or do you have anybody that needs a job in this area?
That's respect.
That is.
Yes.
That's respect and reputation, and I think that's what we've established at Project Forward, that we are really dedicated to looking at the needs of our community, what jobs are out there, what employers need. So when I worked on, because I have the background in curriculum, I've really worked on editing and teasing through our curriculum this year and really matching what are the jobs skills required for these positions on the Cape, and what are employers looking for, and what are sort of the meat of learning to do these types of positions. And we've been incredibly fortunate too that we have these partners. So our students are able to learn in the class, and for example in hospitality they'll learn how to set the table, they'll learn how to use the cash register, they'll learn about greeting guests, and then they'll go practice these skills at the Cape Codder. So they've been a long-time partner of ours and been incredibly supportive. So the ability to transfer that knowledge and apply it right away and then have those job coaches, sort of guiding and scaffolding the learning, makes the students really come out with those skills and abilities to perform those jobs by themselves by the time they're done with the program. And then the other great thing is that, if the student maybe doesn't want to go right into a job, they can come back. So if they our concentrations are sometimes very similar. So we have a cooking, we have a hospitality, a cafe operations, we have office. So the students they might really think they like the cooking, but then they realize, oh, you know what, I want to be around people more and greet people. So then they might come back and take the hospitality concentration. Or they might realize, I don't really like being in a restaurant at all. I want to go work with the animals on a farm. and so they are able to do that. And I think that is the most beautiful part, because I think sometimes we're so worried about, at least coming from the K through 12 setting, we always are so worried about getting kids to the MCAS or to the diploma or through all those pieces that are required, that we don't always think about, well, what do you really want to do, and why don't you try this and see if you like it. And I know, I always tell this story about a student I had in high school that thought of himself as an artist, and he had autism, and he used to draw and paint and sculpt, and he was wonderful. And I said, okay, well, it's time to do your internship. Where do you want to go? And he said he wanted to work at a ceramics studio. So I begged, borrowed, and pleaded with these wonderful women in Munson, Massachusetts, and the Juliet Rose Gallery, and they allowed this student to come and take part in their ceramics studio. And I said, he's very independent. I said, well, I'll come, and then we'll send an aide, and then I'm sure he'll be independent, and you guys will fall in love with him. And sure enough, they did. And he was very successful there. But at the end of the year, I said, so you want to go back to this internship next year? What do you think? You still want to be an artist? "Oh no," he said. "Oh no, that is way too much work." He's like, he was used to, he's like, "I'll just do it as a hobby. I don't want to do all that mucking the ceramic out and cleaning and, all the grunt work that kind of goes with it," which is so important, again, for the students to all learn, all of us, to have those opportunities to explore vocations and really see if we like that. So,
well, interestingly enough, on the morning news today, there was a gentleman who has written a book regarding the fact that we put so much emphasis on college, and of course we know that paying for college education is exorbitant.
Right, exactly.
And he was saying just the same, that we have to get back to where people have something to give.
Exactly.
And go from there.
Exactly. Exactly. And actually, now that you mention cost of education, our program is about $2,100 a semester. So for the most part, it's low cost, but it's still costly. 60% of my students come from the Riverview School, which is wonderful. But that means only 40% are coming from our population on Cape Cod. And my biggest fear when I started getting into this position was, where are all my community students? As a former special ed teacher, I was always looking for places, opportunities for students to be with their same age peers in a typical setting, like a college environment.
Sure.
So I've found that cost has been a real deterrent for our students. Mass rehab was cut enormously in the last year. They used to fully fund our students. Now they're only able to offer $1,000. So this year we worked really hard in applying for a FAFSA line, and at this point students with intellectual disabilities aren't qualified to receive Pell Grant funding unless they're going to a comprehensive transition program. So we have applied for that status at the 4 Cs. We're incredibly hopeful that that will be something that we get in the fall, so that it'll open up access for students in our communities to take advantage of those funds. And it is a loan program, just like you or I or our kids would take out, but they're able to pay it back in their own way. And there's actually an act called the ABLE Act, where families can put money into this act, and it will help pay for programs like this as well.
And
so
all things considered,
we're coming up with ways to support people with disabilities to have those typical experiences and more inclusive opportunities. And for me, as a longtime special ed teacher, that's just what my heart
But
hopes for.
the getting back to the key here, it's making people independent.
Absolutely.
And that's short money to be able to say they're going to be able to take care of themselves from here on in.
Absolutely. And to have meaningful lives, to not have the burden on the families, to be able to, I've been so impressed with the community of Cape Cod, how the students are able to take the DART bus, how there's different agencies like Capabilities and Life that support students with disabilities in adulthood. I go to the store and I can see the people with disabilities, and there's only 70% of our people with disabilities, you can't tell that they have a disability, so it's only about 30% that you can see the facial features or the wheelchairs. But to be able to see that, that's when I knew, when I was in Central Mass, this is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in a community that was inclusive and offering these opportunities for people and supporting them in that wraparound context. And my hope for my future on the Cape is to really help employers understand how important and relevant it is to hire people with disabilities. It's a win-win, and for me it's almost like a civil rights issue with a cost. When it comes to educating people with disabilities, it requires specialized training for the teacher, or technologies, or different methodologies that come at a greater cost. But the end result is a independent person that has these wonderful skills.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's students out there that are, or people out there that are opening bakeries across the country. You'll see these wonderful things. There's a student who's making socks. I mean, they're opening up their own businesses. They're really taking advantage of these opportunities to demonstrate their abilities.
Yes.
And we recently showed the movie Intelligent Lives at the college. And it talks about how standardized testing shouldn't measure your ability in life. You know, if you have a 40 IQ, what does that mean? You're never going to work and you're never going to do anything? Oh my goodness, I hope not. I mean, because I've seen with my students that they are artists, they are storytellers, they're musicians. I've met some of the most talented musicians in my classrooms.
Excellent.
So my hope is that we will all begin to recognize the talents outside of our standard measurements.
And the capabilities.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you do have a website that people
Yes.
could contact you.
Yes, it's it's at www.capecod.edu/Project Forward. So we have we actually have a movie on YouTube as well.
Oh, good.
I think there's a link on our website for that, and that really shows the essence of what we do. We have parents on there and students talking about the program. But our website also has our application process and sort of what our criteria is, and describes what the program has to offer. So
Very good. Do you have fundraisers or anything of that sort?
we haven't had one yet. We do have, at the college, we have an educational foundation, and there is a line in there for us if people wanted to donate. That's also on the webpage, which is wonderful
Good.
because my hope as the college is moving towards rebuilding. Right now we're in the process of making our sidewalks and everything ADA compliant.
Right.
And we're really pushing for this new science building that's going to be amazing. And my hope next is that we'll be able to develop these classrooms for my students that have these simulated learning experiences. So one of the things I've really hoped to build is a classroom for our animal care students.
Wow.
Right now we're kind of going to different facilities, and my teacher's bringing in her grooming materials and all her stuff from home, and it's difficult. You know, if it harkens back to the old days of the special ed teacher walking around in a cart, you know, with all the supplies, trying to go to the different classrooms. But
I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
I know. I mean, I've taught in home ec classrooms, art classrooms, in the basements.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it's part of the process. But I think we are moving forward. And I know that the administration at the college is really supportive of the work that we're doing.
That is what it's all about.
So my hope down the
Yes.
road is that we'll have classrooms that have places where we can wash the dogs and groom them at lower costs, and the community can come in and see what the kids are doing.
Wonderful.
And maybe have some laundry facilities. You know, the other thing that I see that my students can offer the mainstream students is this sort of symbiotic relationship. The Cape has many affluent communities, but it also has many students who are struggling.
Yes.
And we have students at the Four Cs who, you know, pay for their books and can't afford to pay their rent, or can't afford to pay their groceries, can't afford to do their laundry. I mean, if you go do your laundry at a laundromat, it's almost $30. It's crazy. So my hope is that we can actually have a laundromat, and my students can practice those independent living skills, and at the same time support the mainstream students who need, you know, maybe a $5 laundromat instead of a $30
Very good.
laundry
Very good.
facility. So I'm always looking at ways that we can include and support each other, and you know, I'm just really lucky that the Four Cs is open to those opportunities and has really
Excellent.
supported this program. And you know, they actually took on the Mount Ida funeral program, because when Mount Ida was closing out, they came in and they called it teaching out the students that were ready to graduate. But we've fully taken on the funeral program, and there's not a lot of funeral programs in the country, and particularly on the East Coast. So really, the Four Cs sort of saved that field, because I mean, how important is it to have, you know, when you're at one of your most critical times of facing something so devastating as losing someone, to
Yes.
have a professional business and organization that's able to support you in that effort. I mean, I just think the 4Cs really supports the community and has this eagle eye at looking at what we need and how we can help each other. And I've been really proud to work there since August. So.
That is so wonderful, and may
Thank
it continue.
You. Thank you very much.
There is another aspect to Dr. Heather Bish-Martin.
Yes.
And I would like to bring that out also, Heather.
Sure.
And the name Bish is key.
Mm-hmm.
Would you tell us a little about your sister?
Sure. My sister was Molly Ann Bish, who was the lifeguard in Central Massachusetts who was abducted in 2000. She was 16 years old. So it's been almost 19 years that I lost my sister. We were able to recover Molly's body 3 years after she went missing. And we've learned a lot in 19 years. My family has worked very hard at making sure another family might not experience these things, but as we've been experiencing the Olivia Ambrose situation in Boston, or the recent murder of that woman also in Boston,
Right.
It ignites that this is still happening, that we aren't safe, that we need to take these precautions, and we really need to educate each other on what it means to be safe. And we've always talked about not leaving people alone.
Right.
Molly was alone at the pond when she was abducted. She was taken in 8 minutes of her arrival there. So, you know, it was a very
It was
short
very well
time.
orchestrated
It
also.
was. And we haven't found the person that took Molly.
That amazes me in all of these years.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was difficult because our local law enforcement didn't know about missing persons at the time. We've worked really hard that's a required training now. We've traveled across the country trying to teach to local law enforcement in search and rescue. When Molly went missing, the crime scene was destroyed. They thought she might have drowned. They didn't really look at her behavior characteristics, that she didn't really swim. She didn't really like swimming in the pond. She was more of a pool girl. She didn't really like to walk around without her shoes on. The first aid kit was open, which led us to believe maybe someone feigned an injury, so Molly maybe ran to that person to help them. My hope now, because we've tried so many different avenues to find this person. I've made billboards, I've put out newspaper ads, I've held tip campaigns, I've worked with private investigators, I've organized digs and searches, and I made a video a couple years ago about Molly. Right now, my hope is that we can work on getting the familial DNA testing in Massachusetts, and that would allow law enforcement to access the websites that, you know, do the genealogy. So 12 states have this law in place, and they've been able to solve these unresolved crimes.
Wow.
Murders and sexual assaults. I mean, we have caseloads of sexual assaults that haven't been solved because they just can't make that DNA connection. And so what the familial DNA does is, if, like, say your aunt did her DNA in 23andMe, and maybe the nephew killed somebody in Michigan, the Michigan police would tap onto that and be able to say, oh, maybe it's this person, and then they would do the old school investigating to see, was this person in Michigan at that time? Did they know the victim? Did they have proximity? And so they are able to build the case around those ties. So it just really puts some pieces together. And what we've always said with Molly's case is that we're just missing one piece. You know, we've had so many persons of interest, we've had so many people coming forward, and I've always urged people, if they have any information, to please come forward, because we just don't know what that piece is.
And 23andMe is involved here, is it not?
23andMe, Ancestry.com, all of those genetic testing sites that offer your, and I've done it myself, so I know, you know, it's interesting, and I think it's pretty well supported. I think everybody wants the bad guys to get off the street. Nobody wants to live next to a murderer or a rapist. And I think, you know, I think we probably need to work out the kinks of getting rid of the DNA after and the privacy of it all. But most importantly, it would just be law enforcement accessing this on case-by-case need.
Yes.
And really the unresolved cases, the ones that are, you know, from 1973 or the 80s or even 19 years. You know, Molly's case is now getting old. People don't, you know, the kids today don't know who Molly Bish was.
Right.
So I think my generation of parents and my parents' generation, you know, we were all sort of traumatized and maybe raised our kids a little differently.
Right. And there are some of us who will never forget Molly Bish.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I certainly won't.
Speaking of appreciation, I am so happy to have you here,
Oh,
Heather.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
And it sounds to me like you certainly enjoy your work.
I do.
May it continue.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. And also, thank you to you out there for watching Downtown. I'm your host, Robbie Haig, and I hope to see you again real soon.